Serial killings are rare, and they're not often so straightforward. You might get the wrong guy and torture out a false confession, or the trail simply goes cold from lack of evidence.
What the fuck is this? Both the game and also the fact that there's a literal gadget hack wrench cult. The world is a wonderful place. So, the world seemed to be burning. Apparently tech bros have the ability to take down entire companies and, well, Sseth uploaded a new video. What a lovely day. How's it going, folks? Jack here with another reaction here to check out a new upload from Sseth, a fresh one from the Merchant Guild on Songs of Six. Yes, of Six. I have no idea what this game is about. Matter of fact, let me look it up on Steam real quick. If it is indeed on Steam. Oh, what the fuck? Xbox Studio publisher sales, what? Oh. Some good titles there. I don't really own the Empire games. See, this is the thing that happens, right? You log onto the game, onto Steam, and all of these sales keep on showing up. I mean, this can be a good thing. I do assume that one of the reasons as to why games like this one might be popular, if I have my intuition right, that it is a null one. Yes, what do you know? Song of Six. Ooh, it's a 2020 title. Goddamn. Well, it's good then. Fantasy city builder. Okay. And from the looks of it, this is something that is like a roller coaster tycoon running almost flawlessly, given the also overwhelmingly positive view on it. I know that Roller Coaster Tycoon was written in not C. Yes, it was written in C, right? And I suppose that this one is what? It can either be C++, just like Factorio has, or something as ridiculous as JavaScript. I've seen JavaScript games being made with this one. It's great. It's amazing the thing that people can do. Anyways, without further ado, let's jump into this.
What is the worth of a human life? I can't give you that answer,
German.
But I can tell you the worth of an elvish life. 62 meat and 17 leather, once you really peel them down.
Hey, worth of a human being, around $4 to $5 million after taxes, and also depends on how, well, active the person has been, because bone marrow transplant isn't a cheap endeavor to engage oneself in. Additionally, also how sociable the person can be regarding how... Okay, I'm gonna cut the bit here. I have a couple of friends who are both doctors in training, and having two of those in the same room turns every conversation into something very morbid. So they've sometime gone to the point of talking about human trafficking. Trust me, don't have that in a gathering, okay? You will, as the only one who tries to actually follow what they're saying, be slowly turned into a psycho by agreeing with their points.
Hey people, Sseth here. Despite doing this for several years, I have never figured out how to use a microphone, and for this, I sincerely apologize. Songs of Six is an ambitiously made, self-styled city-state simulator, developed for the better part of 7 years. Now, imagine you start playing the game, and naturally, you play the tutorial. I imagine most people do. The difference, however, is that over 100 hours later, I am still on the tutorial.
I'm sorry for pausing again. You know I gotta check what he was playing there. Okay, Men of Culture, Warhammer XCOM, and Risk of Rain. Is it a new one there? I bet. But what the fuck is Scarlet Maiden? And I'm not even going to ask. I think the Sseth has been planting those things explicitly for the likes of us to be pausing and watching. Flip Witch Forbidden Sex Her. No.
Hours later, I am still on the tutorial. This is the story of Jackaton, the default starting location for the tutorial, which is named after the developer. We have no mountains, no natural resources, a sprinkle of trees, a small lake, and generally nothing. We're sandwiched between four neighbors, the city-states of Tegenval and Sluva, and the empires of Starless and Ulisu. In a word, it's not looking very good for us.
Wow.
In the beginning, you start with a couple dozen citizens and a dream of something greater. Unfortunately, we are Crotonians. These are peaceful, vegetarian pigmen with no aspirations beyond slumming in the dirt and farming crops. But for our purposes, they're perfect. And I quickly started an agricultural operation. It's not much, but at least we're not starving. Grain has to be processed by a bakery, while fruit and vegetables can be eaten directly. Regrettably, instead of a fruit farm, I started an orchard. I did this on the promise that it's a slow operation with twice the potential yield. To this day, it has produced no fruit, because by the time the fruit trees mature, I get a worm infestation and have to chop them all down. Citizens typically prefer locals over immigrants, and the only way to increase the local population is by having children at the local nursery. In this game, a year is 16 days, and each 4 days is a season. A baby becomes a child, and a child becomes eligible for labor at 4 years of age. Songs of Six encourages the miracle of childbirth with the economic miracle of child labor. Also, after my pigmen accidentally snacked on all the vegetables in the nursery crib, I can confidently tell you, infant mortality has no effect on the happiness of your population. But you know what has an effect on my happiness? Getting paid to plaster my walls with illustrations of naked women. Hang on, guys. This wall, it's so barren, so dull, so lifeless.
Maidenless.
Luckily, today's sponsor is Displate. Displate is a unique metal poster designed to capture all your passions, whether they be Elden Ring, Star Wars, Warhammer, or Call of Duty. Displate has over 2 million artworks across hundreds of brands. If you know me, you'll know I love my Displates more than any lame paper poster.
I like that he's gone back to the gloves. As you know, I actually do believe that it happened to have done that the first time when he displayed his Displate, where he actually showed his hands, because usually in his old videos he will also have gloves. To emphasize his persona.
But what if they could be even better? You see, I can only look at my normal posters. That's a problem. And the solution is Textra, Displate's brand new tactile poster collection. Now I can run my fingers along my precious Displates and really feel those tactile textures, 3D contours, and selective matte and gloss effects. And of course, it makes them look even cooler. The new Textra finish will be available on hundreds of the best-selling Displates, and Displate looks forward to expanding the library of Displate textures in the following months. So, what are you waiting for? Go to displate.com/Sseth and check out the selected designs that you can now get with a new Textra finish. Transform your walls today with Textra. And thank you to Displate for sponsoring this video. Your city lives and dies on happiness. If you fail to keep your citizens happy, you'll start a failure cascade that ends in ruin. The simulation goes down to each individual citizen and measures the average fulfillment of their needs and desires for that particular race.
Right.
Race is an interesting topic. Some races don't get along. Some races are predisposed to crime.
Here we go again, the hatred for the dwarves.
Some races control our educational sector, our labs, and our academia. But what else am I supposed to do when everyone else hates education? I'm talking, of course, about none other than humans. Humans are troublesome, criminal, and have the lowest sanity score of any race, which means...
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Okay, so going from literal dude who gets his mom to take pictures of him to Mike O'Tren.
Humans are...
I love that this man has embraced the act of literally becoming a meme.
troublesome, criminal, and have the lowest sanity score of any race, which means an essential component of any healthy human population is an asylum. But they heckin' love science, which is important because this game handles research in a unique fashion. You don't just learn something. No, you research it, and then you have to pass on that generational knowledge across time. Remember, we don't start with paper. We get to that point after multiple generations of oral tradition. And even then, we have to maintain and preserve our existing knowledge against entropy. Almost every other race dislikes intellectualism and prefers to be indoctrinated. This is advantageous as it
Oh my god, dude.
dislikes intellectualism and prefers to be indoctrinated. This is...
Who remember this game? The coffin of Andy and Lele, right? So I can't read Arabic, but I'm gonna guess that this is a reference to Turkey.
Türkiye, not Turkey.
Advantageous, as it fosters loyalty in the absence of happiness. An open mind is an open bussy, its gates unbarred and unguarded. Some might argue
Gordon
that great
Freeman.
men are made, not born. In the case of Dondorians, that is literally true, because they appear as fully formed adults at the base of a mountain. For this reason, the only way to get Dondorians is by immigration. They're good at mining, they're good at Minecraft, they're basically dwarves. The Talapi are forest-dwelling elves. They're good with trees and they're good with nature. What else? They're also known for violating human men for several days before they cannibalize.
Oh my god. For 2 days the men were defiled, then slaughtered and eaten. Wow. The devs have some fun writing these attributes, huh?
But bizarrely, this makes them compatible with a cave-dwelling Garfimi, who are effectively bugmen. What they lack in skill, they make up for with raw numbers.
Okay, I'm gonna become the post champ of the world here.
Fimi, who are effectively bugmen.
I don't know how many of you are going to catch this reference, but yeah, it's a good one. If I remember his name correctly, because he did feature in Peaky fucking Blinders, but of course played by another actor whose likeness was more handsome than the one in the picture here, but he was even made into a Sir Oswald Mosley. Yes, he became a plant for Hitler during the Second World War. He was the creator, or at least the person who formed the fascist group in Great Britain, or at least in Britain at the time, the Black Shirts, if you've ever heard of those. Yeah, it started essentially as just being just a staunch conservative, and then it shifted pretty quickly to, well, yeah, Hitler's side.
Barriers of class will be abolished and the Greater Britain will be born of the National Socialist and Fascist Creed.
Even like the king at the time wanted him to have in like the highest position. He had the weirdest story, okay? He was a military guy whose plane crashed, or no, it didn't crash. He wanted to impress his mom who came to visit him by making some tricks in the air, and then crashed the plane by mistake. Broke his leg, and unlike many, like some soldiers who were just going to be confined to a bed, or if you are an absolute Chad, like Mr. Star Fox himself, Douglas Bader, who got freaking prosthesis instead and made himself eligible to fly again, this dude used his injury as a means to raise himself to the position of a great politician by getting in bed with the daughters of powerful men. Yes, that was his strategy, and somehow that led him into Hitler status. It's a weird story. I highly recommend that you read about this guy, but I'm not going to dive further into it. I've already talked about fascism in Maxwell's video, so no more about that rabbit hole.
What they lack in skill, they make up for with raw numbers, and there's nothing bugs enjoy more than plucking limbs from the other races. And while most cities will have a mixed population, some races don't get along with anyone. Viamevia are coastal-dwelling lizard men. They're uniquely xenophobic and incompatible with other races, which is offset by their impressive physique and high lifespan. If you want a true monocultural, isolationist experience, try the lizards. Finally, there are two giant races you can't normally get. The in-lore explanation is that their populations have been decimated over the course of several great wars. If you control a region containing a haven and satisfy their high demands, they can be convinced to join your cause. While they have many differences, they do share a common trait. They're fucking gigantic and make for the best shock troops in the entire game. There's a bit of an irony in a sense that they're incredibly rare and almost extinct, and the best thing they're good at is getting even more extinct. Yeah. The Argonash are spider leviathans with a voracious appetite. They don't care for anything except food, which may sound simple until you realize the logistical nightmare of providing 4 meals a day to every person on the map. The Cantors may ask for more up front, but they're easier to satisfy. generally. Once, I arrested 2 people at the same time, but only had 1 courtroom. One of the 2 arrested thieves had no legal representation. They considered this a complete breakdown of my legal system and left in disgust. But at the time, I knew none of this. I was a young blood, desperate to turn a profit and expand my settlement. YouTubers are a prime example of making the most amount of money with the least amount of skill and intellect. In a fair society, these are the people who should be toiling in the coal mines and dying of black lung.
That's true. That's true. I mean, that's why whenever I hear comments like the dumbest thing that freaking, what's his name again? Hassan made about how emotionally taxing it is to be a content creator. I'm like, seriously? I understand where a statement like that might be coming from, especially for streamers who have to do it for hours and on end, but the difference is very clearly that you can pause that shit and go do something else. A person who works 9 to 5, a person who has to do some research in a lab in months, don't have the luxury to do that. Yeah. But this is true though, but you know what? I wouldn't mind. If I were to be working in a coal mine, I will be acting all the time like freaking Zoolander, taking my shirt off with a canary bird dying. So while I might be dying of asphyxiation, I'll be doing it while looking cool. Also, I'm making it sound as if I was being a miner in the late 1980s. We don't use canary bird anymore.
Appropriately, I simulated this by importing Garfimi slaves and renaming them to my favorite content creators. I invested so much into this coal mining operation only to find out I've spent several in-game years for a tar pit with 30% efficiency. It wasn't just unprofitable, but because of the size and scale, the cost of maintenance alone sent me into the red. On the other hand, I found out slavery is actually quite well received, as my citizens enjoy a slave population so long as it's not their own. My settlement grew, and unfortunately, crime had become an issue. Another day, another flashing. The people lived in fear. Arrests had to be made, but because I spread myself so thin, I didn't have the resources or manpower to enforce it. And so, the public indecency continued until I increased my coverage. And after the prison started filling up, I am forced to make a difficult statement. Dondorians are sex pests. Of the 5 indecent exposers, all 5 have been dwarves. I have no further comment. At this point...
No, this ain't good. This will not be accepted. As a huge fan of the dwarves in Total Warhammer, this one is going straight into the Great Brook of Grudges.
I was earning capital by exporting furniture. This game doesn't have a fixed economy. Trade prices fluctuate and work on the rules of supply and demand. Basically, if you can make your own, that's strongly encouraged. If you have excess to sell off, that's good too, but overtrading a commodity can apply disproportionate pressure on the value, which is minimized by the number of trade partners. So, if you want money, you better diversify. But if you don't, poverty also has its advantages. If our treasury is empty and we're dead broke, guess what? Our diplomatic gifts mean a whole lot more, which is important because if our reputation drops to 0 with any of the 4 factions bordering us, we're getting invaded. And with a current standing army of 0 men, I don't fancy my chances. So I would intentionally dip my savings into the red, plead, cry, and defecate in front of my neighbors, and a pathetic display made me an unattractive target for assault. I would reputation farm into the multiple thousands so I could reliably forget about it for the next dozen years.
Okay, that's a smart tactic. Remember the other game that he reviewed a couple of times ago?
Domain expansion. Immaculate Crack Rock.
The matchless Kung Fu, where you quite literally could use defecation as a means to preventing fights. Yeah. This is the callback that I got.
While enjoying the benefits of almost 0 taxation on all trade. This gave me a lot of time to experiment and figure out what I'm doing. Firstly, I tried mining gemstone. Subsequently, I failed at mining gemstone. Instead, I used the natural fertility of Jacketon and turned it into an opium plantation. I still had a lot of Garfimi slaves left over and put them to work in fields of poppies and cotton. However, I got overly ambitious and my bugs got a little rowdy. There is no other situation where the following words can be said. The cotton pickers are having another uprising. Subsequently, we abolished the practice. Not on moral grounds, but because they robbed my throne and took just about everything. Happy...
This is not historically correct. in no civilization.
Happiness was at an all-time low among my Dondorians, so I tried producing alcohol and opened a tavern. Demand outstripped supply. Access was terrible and supplies were so low that it just made them angrier.
Sorry, I had to sneeze there.
So I tried satisfying food preference instead. Mushrooms, fish, complex proteins. Then I restricted everyone to just eating bread, and they were happier. Additionally, I tried introducing fine dining in the form of restaurants, and almost lost the game to a public riot. Not
What is this, John Harvey Kellogg? Everything can be sorted if you only eat corn.
only did I fail to meet supply, but each time I did so, a citizen would starve, spiraling into a vicious loop. Their desire for the McMenu was so strong that it overrode their survival instinct to eat street food, preferring instead the embrace of death. This was not a plague of famine. It was a plague of choice. After the many lessons learned, alcohol is haram, cooking is forbidden, and our entire food pyramid is bread. Finally, I did make a breakthrough in citizen satisfaction. It turns out that when I select and look at a random peasant, they are not meant to be caked in shit. And only after building bathhouses 40 hours into the game did I make that connection. Around this time, I also realized, after reading the tooltip, the reason for my insane cost of maintenance. You see, buildings have walls. Walls increase isolation. I did not build any walls. Do I have to rebuild my entire city?
Of course.
Yes, I did. I rebuilt the whole thing. And I learned to love city planning. Building design is incredibly fun, and there's no greater satisfaction than having an
Oh, that sounds like cope. That sounds like cope.
elegantly designed lavatory for optimal shitting, pissing, and sharding. In the end, you take so much pride in what you've built. Am I coping? Yes, absolutely. But after numerous trials and tribulations, I had a stable, diversified economy and a series of shacks resembling civilization. Also, I promoted a 4-year-old to become nobility. Because it's funny, nobles provide a variety.
That was a picture of Asmongold's room, wasn't it? I do remember in the stream where he talked about how his room actually looks like. And I'm pretty certain this is it. That maybe not the case, but this is fucking disgusting. You can't live like this. I don't care how bad you have it. Clean your room. That's the smallest thing you can do. Jesus.
Also, I promoted a 4-year-old to become nobility. Because it's funny, nobles provide a variety of beneficial effects, and currently they're a work in progress. Or, as the developer translated to me, they cannot betray you yet. Everything was calm and peaceful, until we found a Crotonian with his eyes scooped out. On the body was a note, signed Jake the Invincible, claiming that he's saving lives by returning them to his forgotten god. Our city had a serial killer.
What the fuck? Returning to his forgotten god shows a picture of Gadget.
Another day, another victim found dead. Eye sockets empty. Every victim was a Crotonian, and this was clearly a racially targeted crime. Terror ruled the streets, and we had no leads. It wasn't until a passerby claimed to see a Crotonian woman fleeing the scene. This information didn't add up, but we tortured a confession out of them, and they pleaded guilty to all crimes. The serial killings promptly stopped. Jake the Invincible was identified to be a middle-aged Crotonian woman predating on her own people. We sent the killer into the arena to be chopped into pieces for the spectacle of a crowd. We gave their body as much respect as it deserved. We pissed on it and dumped it into a mass grave. Serial killings are rare, and they're not often so straightforward. You might get the wrong guy and torture out a false confession, or the trail simply goes cold from lack of evidence.
What the fuck is this? Both the game and also the fact that there's a literal gadget hack wrench cult. The world is a wonderful place.
Eventually, beyond exports and fields of opium, I found the most lucrative source of cash. I would intentionally reduce my army down to 0 to try and entice rebels to attack my city. The moment this happens, I hire mercenaries, crush the invaders, and sell off their loot for fat stacks. This sent me from borderline broke to $500,000 in the bag. Now, hiring mercenaries is incredibly expensive. Paying them is even more expensive, but they handle their own supplies and they're instantaneous. I use them to conquer a neutral region, and as I did, my brain expanded and my neurons started firing, because suddenly I can hire more. For each region under my control, I get access to 5 extra mercenary companies. So I hatched a plan. Take all my money, raise an army of mercenaries, and conquer Winsta, the weakest nation I could find nearby. With each city taken, my numbers increased, eventually laying siege to their capital. I sold everything to keep those mercenaries paid. I almost ran out of money. If that siege lasted a day longer than it did, I would have lost.
That's very Carthaginian-like there. He's making history.
But in the end, it was worth it, because I reached the max limit of mercenary companies, and I could now recruit enough men to overpower anyone. Problem is, they're asking for 750k up front, with a daily fee of 100k. Soldiers of fortune have a steep asking price. But what if the Golden Horde could pay for itself? I've been on the back foot of negotiations, pleading and groveling to my neighbors for mercy, until now. Selling my spoils, I muster a short-lived but massive army, declare war, intercept their army, and immediately sue for peace, to which they have no option but to accept my favorable terms. The best part about shotgun diplomacy is you already know the answer each time. Because once they surrender, we do it again until we empty their entire treasury. Unknowingly, they just paid for their own demise. The century of humiliation was over as Jackaton turned on their allies. No longer will I be extorted each time it's their nephew's birthday. Tegenval and Sluva were too small to resist. The elvish empire of Starless to the north was a different story, but led to the development of strategies I'd replicate going forward. Economic hyperwar is the act of manipulating the enemy to take decisions that are numeric.
This isn't real. I just think the word sounds cool. Here's a picture of Henry Kissinger and some schizos posting to fill the screen. Jesus Christ. How did you know my grandfather lived in Argentina? This is literally Kanye right now. He's on that demon time. Fuck. I never would have imagined to live in a world where the one kid that was setting himself differently than the typical rapper with his polo shirt and relatively good behavior would turn out to be crazier than fucking Alex Jones.
There's Nazis above the ADL.
Yeah, but Nazis are like kind of cool.
Wow. And being a massive racist and anti-Semite. What a monster. And, well, next to Henry Kissinger, that makes him look kind of normal.
Numerically beneficial while destroying them internally. We invade cities, sell them back to the enemy, only to invade them again. Then we use them as bartering chips for other cities. Take control of those cities, demolish the walls, and advance our front line. We remove the need for extended siege and reduce the enemy to a single fight. There was only one exception to this. As luck would have it, the human empire of Ulisu to the south had the largest standing army in the world. Even if I recruited every mercenary, I would still be outnumbered 2-1. So I drained his treasury and I waited. Eventually, he could no longer afford to maintain his army and fell like the rest of them. Jackaton lives by a simple proverb: feed the earth and it will feed you. But we fed the earth so much that nature herself is vomiting up red. There's too many prisoners of war and not enough mass graves to go around. The rest is morbid history as I took the rest of the map. Jackaton is now the single state empire of the world. Resources are limitless. Currency is infinite, for we possess an infinite money printer, the design of which is as follows. I form a puppet state, declare war on them, take all their money from a peace treaty, invade them anyway, and install a new puppet to repeat the process. I have, in every sense, completely rigged the system, but like Sisyphus reaching the top of a mountain, I had nothing left to struggle against, and so too did I lose my interest.
He continued the trend. He said that he was making content creator into his pawns. So he does here. It actually looks very much like Asman. Jesus Christ.
Mountain. I had nothing left to struggle against. And so...
Lanky, bold body. Yeah.
Too did I lose my interest. So I made a royal decree to arrest everyone. If you're ever interested in ending the game, just click prosecute on your main population. Guards start arresting citizens, then they arrest other guards before being arrested themselves. Prison wardens get jailed and break out of their own prisons. Chaos and pandemonium rule the day as everyone turns on each other and eventually they turn on me. In summary, Songs of Six has a very expansive, detailed,
Wonderful
and
game.
enjoyable tutorial. At 160 hours of playtime, I can't wait to play the actual game. This
Dang.
may not take the spot for Game of the Year. As we all know, that's reserved for Churn Vector, but it's a very close second. The graphics, the changing of seasons, the music, the scale of the simulation, considering this is written in Java, I have no words. There's no other game where the line between city builder and sociopathy is so blurred. To demonstrate this, for my second playthrough as the Garfimi, I proposed a novel form of meat production. It's less of a ranch or a pasture, and more of a tilapia nursery. For reference, at a consumption rate of half an apple a day, a fully grown tilapia child costs us 32 apples, but gives us twice that amount in meat and leather. And once they're adults, we arrest, execute, and butcher them. The tilapia child to tilapia soup pipeline is highly effective. And while my humans don't agree with cannibalism because they're bigoted chuds that can't grasp the richness of Garfimi culture, their stomachs can't complain. So, what have we learned today?
Vegeta, no.
Vegeta, yes!
That is a Vegeta move, for sure. Oh,
A. 1. Prisoners are the ultimate cash crop. Labor is a resource, and so are they. 2. Look past people and their differences, and see them instead as a source of protein. 3. Much like real life, retirement is economically unfeasible and exists only as a carrot and stick to motivate the working class. I give this game my highest recommendation. I give it no days of food out of we're about to starve. And because it's mainly one guy and not a corporate entity, I can just ask for a sale. If you're interested, it's 20%
Wow.
off on GOG and Steam for the rest of April. The first 100 to use the link win a free chemical castration or prefrontal lobotomy. Terms and conditions may apply. As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. A warm thanks to the many members of the Merchants Guild generously funding and bankrolling these videos. You're all truly wonderful. Have a good one.
AI. The only good thing that AI is for the creation of grade A memes.
One eternity later.
That's a lot of patrons. Just saying. So what did we learn today? Do not discriminate against people. Treat them equally as protein sources. Oh man, that was fun. Guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. As always, please do make sure to go and subscribe to Sseth if you haven't already, and like this very video on his channel. And of course, if you like this one, don't forget to hit that like button, and I wish you all to have a wonderful day. See you guys in the next one. Bye.